Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Current State podcast. We are here to bring you episode four. Online today, we are on Zoom recording the meeting. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be with Dhruv Peshkar as usual. So, Dhruv, how are we?
Yeah, I'm great. We've got some really exciting conversations to have today. Some really interesting topics as well. So yeah, I just can't wait to get into it.
100%. So the first of those topics is the new EA Sports deal. So the Public Investment Fund, or the PIF of Saudi Arabia, which is a private equity firm, has bought EA for a deal that totals around 55 billion US dollars. So it's a huge deal, and it means that EA Sports will become a private firm or private company for the first time. And I think this is quite important, isn't it, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously said about the $55 billion, and that's the amount of money going to the deal. But it's really important to note that of that 55 billion, 20 billion of that is made up of debt. So what that means is that PIF have gone to JP Morgan and borrowed 20 billion pounds, as well dollars, sorry, to use in the deal. And this is something which we call an LBO, or a leveraged buyout. So this is I think this is the biggest LBO in history as well. And this could be quite risky, and we'll touch on that later as well, the potential repercussions for both sides. But what this means is that I think shareholders at EA Sports receive $210 per share. So that's around 25% over the listed market value at the time. In terms of restructuring, I think the restructuring, well, most of it's unknown as of yet. We do know that the CEO is continuing his role still. So that's the only thing that's really become evident so far. Um, but yeah, this is an example of Saudi Arabia trying to really put a foot into the sports industry. Obviously, with EA Sports being one of the largest gaming companies in the world.
100%. So I'm also aware that it will probably cause a lot of prices of EA Sports kind of games and items to increase. So that includes in-game purchases as well as just purchasing games themselves. So we can expect that for future consumers of the company. And I think LBOs are very risky, as you said. For example, a failure of an LBO in the past has been Toys R Us, the really huge toys firm that shut down in the UK, which was also um, under an LBO. So it shows the kind of massive risk of this purchase to do with EA. And also, it kind of demonstrates Saudi Arabia's interest in interfering with sports in general, which you can see not just in Saudi Arabia, but in the Middle East. So the Middle East is kind of an area where they're trying to get more involved in sports, especially football. So obviously, you had the Qatar World Cup in 2022, which was the first in the Middle East. And in that, you had obviously Morocco making a very good run to the semi-finals as well, showing kind of the Arab kind of power in sports. Saudi Arabia are set to host in 2034, and there are many football clubs, like big football clubs, who are owned by countries in the Middle East. So Newcastle is owned by Saudi Arabia, by the Saudi Arabian kind of family. You've got Qatar, who kind of basically own the PSG football club, and you've also got a company in Dubai or UAE who own the football club Manchester City. All these are mostly massive clubs, and a lot of reasons why they are able to provide such large wages and attract big names because of the investment that goes into the clubs, which is usually generated by oil revenue. So you can see that the Middle East is going to become a bigger player in sports in general.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously touched on the fact that you may see prices of goods and services produced by EA Sports rising. So by that we mean in-game purchases, games such as EA Sports NBA
Yeah,
2K. Like you may see the prices increase, but the reason this will happen is because there's added pressure on EA Sports to make that 20 billion in debt somehow. They need to make that profit. They need to increase profits so they can pay off their debt to JP Morgan and all the other investment banking firms they've taken money from. Um, so what this means is that, yeah, for consumers, they may see an increase in prices. Another potential impact is that EA Sports may just simply lay off workers in order to try and reduce cost of production. And also, I think, yeah, I mean, try and reduce cost of production. And we just need to wait and see what the impacts of that are. And also, you talked about the the Middle East trying to increase influence. I think, well, in my opinion, this is really important these days, especially with sport, and it's very cultural, right? Everywhere in the world, there are always people who play different types of sport. So by Saudi Arabia getting involved in sports, in the gaming industry, some things which are more cultural, is that they're able to increase their sphere of influence, increase the amount of people in the world who are seeing their country in a good way, which comes under the thing which you talk about, which is games washing. So that's kind of what we're seeing here.
100% definitely. And it's quite interesting because obviously in the past, loads of big countries have tried to extend their influence into sports and gaming. In sports, you can see, for example, China with their kind of CSL in the 2010s, where they invested heavily into their league that sadly didn't really go anywhere. You've also got FIFA trying to encourage the US, which obviously probably the biggest superpower in the world at the moment, into football. They obviously are hosting the next World Cup 2026 along with Canada and Mexico, and they recently hosted the 2025 Club World Cup, so which are two huge events which involved mass ticket sales and politics in the US as well because Trump got involved. But it didn't really have the massive turnout that everyone expected. There were loads of empty seats at the stadiums in the Club World Cup, and ticket prices for the next World Cup are very expensive, and a lot of people really just might just not go. And I think that the empty seats and the stadiums being half full will probably continue for some matches in the World Cup as well, even though it's such a massive event. But the idea of having to travel to America for it, the American people probably aren't as kind of passionate about football as the other countries. So I think Saudi Arabia is completely different, though. You have obviously the Saudi Arabian leagues are much more established. Sorry, the Middle Eastern leagues are much more established. You have probably nations who are actually better at football themselves. In terms of the FIFA rankings, you've got loads of countries that are high up there. A lot have qualified for the World Cup already, for example, Jordan. So I think that Saudi Arabia, this kind of ties into their vision, their 2030 strategy, which is kind of their economic diversification plan, led by the Crown Prince, which is trying to increase their influence in kind of industries where there's a lot of Western dominance at the moment, particularly the US. Obviously, the goal of Saudi is to make gaming and esports contribute 1% of their GDP by 2030, which will obviously expand their economy, but also I think this is a very important move for Saudi Arabia's future. Obviously, these are kind of two industries where in the future they will become much more popular. So I think that this is definitely the motivation here is quite obvious, but it's also going to. I think it's the right idea from Saudi Arabia. So I think it's quite interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go back to what you said about America, and this is again my opinion, but I completely support FIFA's decision to give America the World Cup because America is a massive market. It is perhaps in the world one of the biggest three markets, I think, where firms are able to go in and make the most profit, right? So therefore, by increasing the popularity of football in America, there's so much money to be made. But this is not something which can be done immediately because in America, football is not a historical sport. The historical sports there are basketball, American football, what else?
Baseball as well. Baseball as well.
Baseball. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So those are the three major sports. Breaking into that top three is going to be incredibly difficult. But the rise of football in America has been metronomic so far. And I think with the 2026 World Cup, we may see this rise increase in its speed. Of course, the issues you pointed out, such as ticket pricing, that obviously may harm the chances of that happening. But there's still a bit of time until the World Cup. We may see steps being taken to rectify that. And I'm just going to go back to the EA Sports deal we were talking about. We're going to talk about a few more problems that EA Sports may run into. So obviously, the relationship between America, which is where EA Sports is still based. So just to make that clear, the base of the company is still within America. It's just their owners are based in Saudi Arabia. Because of this, and the relationships between the Middle East and America are not as strong as, say, America and Britain, for example. So whether we see the government take an interest in this deal, and like they may pose any national security concerns, and yeah, there may be a bit of intervention which may come as a result of this deal.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's also, yeah, so I mean, that's definitely interesting there. Uh, I don't know what else to talk about, to be honest. Should we, uh, should we, should we call it there? I think that's good, no?
Yeah, that's it. We're done.
Cool. Okay, that's good.
I don't.
That's good, right? For that
Yeah,
segment.
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I'll start recording. The recording started. Yeah, when you're ready, you can begin the intro.
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to move on now, and we have a story coming out of Southeast Asia, where Donald Trump has visited many countries there in order to discuss the trade and diplomatic relations. This is obviously following his tariffs custom. What do you have to tell us about this?
Yeah, so a while ago, Trump and his diplomatic team planned a very, very lucrative, very, very extensive visit to Asia, where he's going to visit three main areas to discuss trade, as you said, trade and diplomatic relations. In the meeting with Zelensky, we found out more about this. So he basically said that there's going to be a massive trade deal with China incoming, hopefully. He kind of says that under his reign, he has changed the economy of America. All of like tariffs and export revenue has increased a lot due to Trump. He kind of says that Biden basically was horrible with this. He said that we gave so much money to China under the Biden administration, and this led to China becoming superpower because they've been able to build up their military. And Trump is now saying that he's basically rejuvenated that threat under his administration. Um, so basically, US in the past, US bought China goods and services, but China never bought anything from America. And now this has changed, according to Trump. And I think there's evidence for this as well. You can see with export numbers. So obviously, the China one was the main one, but firstly, we're going to talk about Malaysia and the ASEAN summit. So the first place that Trump visited was Malaysia. He went to the ASEAN summit, which is the summit between all of the Southeast Asian countries. To recap, that's Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines, Brunei, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and Myanmar. So it's quite cool because they've basically managed to join together all of the Southeast Asian countries into an economic and diplomatic powerhouse of a community where there isn't really much tensions apart from one, which we're going to talk into a bit later. Obviously this kind of organization has many aims. Promoting economic growth is the one, cultural development and regional stability. These are the main three ones. You can kind of group this into economic, political, and social desires. As one block, it's the fourth largest economy in terms of GDP, and it's an economic powerhouse in my opinion. So they're having a summit in October, and it's happened already. So we can discuss what happened. So there are three main things that have happened. So the first thing is a new country got admitted, so Timor-Leste, which is a country that borders Indonesia only, and it's very, very tiny. It got its independence in 2002, and now it's joined in 2025. And it shows the willingness of this kind of organization to expand, and it shows that this is going to become more and more of an economic threat to other countries, maybe. And another thing, which Trump has already said before, is that the ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia was officially confirmed. So both those countries are in the ASEAN organization, and Trump and the Malaysian president acted as mediators to confirm the ceasefire. So it was said that weaponry and military equipment was to be removed from the border and security was prioritized. And officially, the ceasefire was declared between these two countries. Obviously, Trump has a very big interest in this. It was one of the 8 wars that he had claimed that he brought peace to, with origins coming from the French Indochina area, where France used to colonize parts of the Southeast Asia, including Cambodia. And Trump, it wasn't really a big war, I would say. There was just a bit of border clashes. Around 10 people were probably killed and a few more casualties. But that was basically it, really. So it wasn't a big thing. Then you have the last thing that was discussed is a trade deal between America and Malaysia, where Malaysia were committed to signing uh, a deal that allowed them to give access for US goods in their markets. That could be industrial goods and agricultural goods, which obviously increases export revenue for America. And the tariff has decreased. The reciprocal tariff went from 49% to 19%, which shows the increasing economic relations between the two countries. And I think Southeast Asia is kind of a region in the world where the importance of it and the kind of countries there have been overlooked recently. You've got major military and economic like not superpowers, but powers that have the ability and have really important diplomatic relations. Southeast Asia kind of area lies in the middle of many maritime regions, and it's very, very important. This area it doesn't really get much kind of attention in the media. So I think that it's quite important. Malaysia, Indonesia especially, they have very important kind of, for example, goods that like rare earths that are very hard to find in the western part of the world. So I think it's quite interesting. Again with the summit, and the second thing, Trump he visited Japan. So Drew, what can you tell us about the importance of this visit to Japan regarding the leadership of Japan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Japan have a new prime minister, someone called Sanae Takaichi. Apologies for the pronunciation. She's known as the Iron Lady. She came into power after a coalition agreement between the two parties, and she is she has quite strong. She's quite conservative, I'd say, in many things, such as her agenda, and she has plans to increase defense spending by 2% of the GDP. And if you look at that in the grand scheme of things, how big the GDP is, that's incredibly significant, and that's higher than most countries in the area. A reason she's probably doing this is because there is heightened tension, and there always has been in that region of the world. Because obviously Japan is next to South Korea, North Korea, and well, especially in the 2010s, and even now still, North Korea can be seen as a bit erratic, maybe in their actions. No one really knows what's going on inside there properly. So it's best to be prepared for the worst case scenario. I think that's the kind of the approach she's taking. And obviously, China and North Korea have a very close working relationship. So Japan needs to make sure they protect against that and ensure that their interests are protected and there's no chance of them getting attacked in any way. North Korea actually do undergo nuclear operations as well in the Pacific, and Japan kind of really needs this help from Donald Trump to try and calm these down. And Trump actually did say that he is willing and able 100% to meet with Kim Jong-un and try and sort something out. Uh, yeah, she declared in the phone call as well that the top foreign policy priority is increasing the strength of US-Japan relationships. This is incredibly important. As we touched on earlier, getting Donald Trump involved within this whole North Korea-China alliance that is kind of in that area of the world. And well, hopefully we'll see an increase of relations between Japan and America. That's kind of looking like the way it's heading right now. And this will somewhat influence the decisions that North Korea will make in the future as well, perhaps.
Yep, definitely. And we can dive into what happened in the meeting to see further. So, the Japanese Prime Minister referred to the old Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated, and she kind of obviously paid tribute and said that she would carry the legacy on from him. And she also references the government as being in a golden stage, a golden stage. Uh, so I think that's very important because I think this is kind of the prime minister's way of kind of flattering Trump, which is one of the methods we can see lots of leaders are using in order to gain Trump on his favor. For example, you have the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who nominated him many times for the Nobel Peace Prize in a speech at the Gaza summit, where he praised him for his exemplary and visionary leadership, for example. And that was obviously praised by Trump. So, in order to gain the US on your side, you may have to, in fact, actually do that. You might have to kind of praise Trump, maybe even to an extent where you don't think you actually would agree with what you're saying. But for America to be on your side, that is kind of what has to be done, really. But yeah, so a lot of economic deals were agreed. So Tokyo pledged they would invest up to $550 billion into the US economy, and in the form of that's in the form of loans and guarantees, and other trade deals. They and one of another key thing is they wanted to deepen their defense cooperation and security related reasons, exactly for the reasons you were saying. And yeah, so 100%, the relationship is definitely getting closer. They have a mutual defense agreement, very, very key. Not many countries have this in the world. If one gets attacked, the other is going to come to aid. So that is very key between the two countries. That's not really very common in the world nowadays. So it shows how important the relationship really is. And I think this prime minister is also very promising for Japan. She is obviously strongly conservative, like you said, but she's got the popularity of the population of Japan. They really love her. They really like her. They really like where Japan is going under her. I think that, and it's obviously the first ever female prime minister as well. So very crucial in terms of diversity there as well. So I think it's going to be, I think it's very, very important. So yeah. Ruth, I'm just going to, like, this is not obviously going to, cut this part out, but the sun is really coming in. You need to close it down again. Like, when you spoke, the footage wasn't really that good. Like the sun is kind of like, yeah, you can see it. There's like there's like one, no, on the other side of the window, there's just something, and it keeps and the lights come coming in, and it kind
What?
of just no on the other side of the like go to the other side of the no, like go to I don't know how to explain it. Go to no. Go back to the side of the window. No,
Yeah.
this side. Yeah, and go to like the part of the window that's nearest to your setup. Here, yeah. There's some light coming from there. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there.
Um, I can't do much of that.
Can't really. Can you move the iPad then? Or like tilt it slightly so it's not
Is it
directly
fine
on
now?
you?
It should be better now. It should be fine now.
Yeah, anyway, that's good. Okay,
That's
cool.
fine.
So that's fine. We'll just continue on from here. You can introduce the China thing. So obviously, just talk about
No,
how
no,
things
wait,
are.
I'll just disagree with the Trump thing, and then I'll go into China, kind of.
Say again.
I'll just wait. I'll just keep going. Wait. Give me a second. Where's China? China notes. China.
Basically,
Okay, I
just
got it.
two biggest economies, trade deals meant to be discussed. And the main thing, say this, the main thing is that they had a deal where neither country would impose any new tariffs until November the 10th. But say
Okay,
that
fine.
in the meeting they had, they agreed to extend this trade deal or this tariff deal to 2026 and into the next year. So
Okay, fine.
that's the most important part. So because obviously, and then you can stop there, and then I'll go into depth about that.
Okay, ready. Three, two, one. Okay, ready. I'm gonna start now.
Yeah, stop.
Yeah, I'm just actually going to go back to what you said about countries trying to suck up to Trump. And I don't think this is really going to work because you may love him or hate him, but there's no denying that Donald Trump, in some ways, is a very intelligent person. That's how he's managed to gain so much wealth and, in some ways, play the rules slightly to the limit, maybe. But you need to be smart to do that. So that's something he has. And at the end of the day, he has his view of US interest in it at heart. That's the thing he's trying to protect. Whether that's what's right is up for debate, but that's what he thinks US interests should be. So I don't think the like how much other countries or other countries' leaders suck up to him is really going to change much in terms of how he behaves. Like, for example, with Pakistan, we saw that, quite funnily, their leader keeps nominating him for the Nobel Prize. I don't
Yeah.
think them doing that's really going to mean much for Trump. It may show that, oh, Trump might think he's a nice guy. But if getting good relations with Pakistan doesn't work in their interests, he won't do that. But just moving back to what we were talking about and going back to the China trade deal, obviously this happened on November. Sorry, this happened recently, and this is massive. This is a trade deal between two of the world's biggest economies. And the result of this is what I mean, originally they agreed not to impose any new tariffs on each other until November the 10th, but this was extended into 2026. And America will ask China to stop buying Russian oil in order for the Ukraine-Russia war to be more easily settled. So obviously they can use this as a kind of bargaining chip when it comes to negotiations with Putin. Because if China stopped buying Russian oil, that's a massive part of Russian exports gone. That's a massive part of their income flow gone as well. So they need to. So this will be massive for America. That's something they really took away from this as well. And they're also set to complete the change of the ownership of the social media platform called TikTok to America. Obviously, TikTok's something that Trump saved just recently because originally there were concerns about the security threat of TikTok because it is Chinese owned. So whether TikTokers steal your data and give it to the CCP to then use it against America, though there were security concerns based off that. So by having ownership transferred to America, it kind of gets rid of those completely. And to be honest, like you've seen TikTok being banned in other countries as well. So in India, TikTok is banned because of the tensions between the two countries through different escalations recently, especially. So yeah.
Yeah, so they were obviously quite some things that were discussed in the meeting. But if we could go back to the trade deal, because this is obviously the more important part. Yeah, you're right. So we've discussed the Ukraine thing, we've discussed TikTok, now let's go back to the trade thing. So what could have happened is a trade war. That was the biggest kind of concern of global powers and economists over the world about what would have happened. But sadly, not sadly, gladly, it didn't happen. But what that would have meant is where countries impose tariffs repeatedly, as well as quotas, for example, on each other, which means that it becomes more expensive to export and import between countries. And ultimately, that would lead to no trade occurring between countries. Um, and This is obviously horrible because you have goods from other countries that weren't given market access in loads of economies in the world. Inflation will rise, and tensions generally will increase if a trade war did happen. And the threat of this was very real. So Trump threatened that he would increase the tariff on Chinese goods to 100% extra. So on top of the original tariff, 100% more. After Beijing announced that it will be increased export controls on rare earths, which is something that US really needs because it doesn't really have much domestically in their production. Rare earths is the main thing here. But then obviously Trump threatened and it was getting heated. So that's why this meeting was very key. Trump wanted to kind of calm it down. He wanted to make sure that the tariffs didn't rise. He didn't want a trade war with China. Who wants a trade war with China, right? China is an economic powerhouse. They are the second biggest economy in the world after the US. So that would be horrible for both countries. But what actually happened is, as Drew said, the trade truce was extended to hold for a year. Trump was very positive after coming out of the meeting. He said the meeting was a 12 out of 10. Classic Trump there with some humor. And he said that US and China are set to sign a new trade deal very soon, including goods involving semiconductors, which are materials that have an electrical conductivity between a conductor and insulator, and they are very important for electrical devices, and obviously rare earths, which their elements are very important for lots of natural gas and oil production as well. So, and China dominates the supply chain. They are the main supplier of all of these goods. So it's very important for the US to get these goods. And I think it's very important to discuss the narrative between the two countries in this negotiation. For example, lots of reporters in Beijing said that Xi Jinping was the president with the upper hand in the negotiations. He stared down Trump, or he, in quote unquote, stared down Trump and he blinked. Uh, and lots of people thought that he had managed the mastering. So he mastered the managing of trying to deal with Donald Trump and his character. He obviously didn't use the method of flattering him, but instead he tried to use threats of trade, tariffs, quotas to intimidate him. Because in reality, in terms of production, China is the major power in the world. China have this leverage. China can blackmail other economies in effect. So, I mean, I think that worked for Xi Jinping. And Trump obviously came out of the meeting saying that he was the dominant player. It was 12 out of 10. It went very well for America. In actual fact, I think China were the country who benefited the most. There was an oil and gas trade deal from Alaska, also going to be agreed, and that's meant to be very large scale. So I think it's very crucial that this happened. And yeah, so what were you discussing about earlier? How do you deal with Donald Trump? Do you flatter him or do you intimidate him? It obviously depends on your country. China has the power to intimidate Trump with the economic kind of measures that it can impose. Beijing was said to fight very much in the trade negotiations, but honestly, overall, this meeting was very productive for both sides. There was no trade war, and overall, Trump's visit to Asia was a great success. All countries, all the meetings ended very well, and yeah, I think it was a success for the world, you might say.